Yo, what is up guys? It's me, Zach Lee, back with another video. As always, you guys are the real MVPs coming back each and every single day. Can't thank you enough. But now, let's just get into what we gotta talk about today. We're gonna be talking about players who I feel need to step up in the NBA playoffs. Because there are a few of them that could either make or break their team in terms of how far they get in the playoffs. But first, a quick word about this video sponsor, athleticcases.com. Basketball, baseball, football, or soccer, you guys can now rock your favorite player on the back of your phone no matter what the sport. Use the promo code Zach Lee for 10% off your order. Link is in the description box below. But now with that out the way, on the video. Let's go.
Carmelo Anthony is finally in a position where he's going to be able to legitimately compete for a championship. And I think that's something that his talent demands. This is a man that's been in the league for 14 years. He has never played in an NBA Finals. He's been to one conference finals in his career when he's with Denver, and Chauncey Billups was the point guard back there. We need to see somebody of his talent legitimately competing for a championship.
Right off the bat, we have to talk about Carmelo Anthony. See, the Oklahoma City Thunder are probably the biggest wild card in the Western Conference playoffs because they're a team where people could either see losing in the first round of the Utah Jazz, or maybe even making it all the way to the Western Conference Finals, or even the NBA Finals, depending on the health of Golden State and what happens with them. And to me, the key to how far they get, how well this postseason goes for OKC, lies with Carmelo Anthony and how effective of a player he can be. Because let's not sugarcoat anything here. Carmelo Anthony was trash in the NBA regular season. That's just the way it is. I mean, to start off the season when he was playing so awful, we all thought that this was just him trying to adjust to his new role with the OKC Thunder. He had been so used to being the first option his entire career. Let's cut him a little bit of slack. He's trying to adjust to being the third option now on the Thunder. It's gonna take some time, but eventually he will get there and he will look like a really good player again. We waited, and here we are, and Carmelo Anthony never looked like the player we thought he was going to be when the Oklahoma City Thunder first traded for him. He has easily had the worst season of his career. And when all of us realized that Carmelo Anthony isn't what we thought he was going to be, we thought that maybe it would be best for him to come off the bench, since if he was playing with the secondary unit, he could be that guy that the offense flows through, because Carmelo Anthony is a rhythm shooter, a guy that needs to shoot himself into a rhythm to be effective on the offensive end. He's not going to get that chance as playing third option. If he comes off the bench and the ball flows through him, he can shoot himself into a rhythm, which will help him and also help the Oklahoma City Thunder. So it would have made perfect sense for Carmelo Anthony to come off the bench. However, we all know what his response was when he was asked to come off the bench.
Hey, P, they said I got to come off the bench.
But that doesn't change the fact that right now it is do or die for Carmelo Anthony. He has to step up right now, and by step up I simply mean hit some shot. This is make or break for Carmelo Anthony. He refused to come off the bench. He thinks he still deserves to be a starter, so now he has to show us that he can still be a starter in today's NBA when he's not the first option on a team. Because if he goes into the postseason playing like he did in the regular season, or even takes a step down from that, which would be kind of hard to do, I really don't know what his future in the NBA is going to look like. It'll definitely be time for him to suck it up and admit that the best role for him is coming off the bench.
92-90. Wiggins, the difference maker himself. Oh, he is absolutely on fire.
And you guys already know this one was going to be here. The Rockets versus Wolves matchup is a kind of interesting one because the Minnesota Timberwolves, under normal circumstances, wouldn't have been the A seed had Jimmy Butler stayed healthy all season long. They would have been a top 4 seed in the Western Conference, and they would have been a dominant top seed in the Western Conference had Andrew Wiggins had a better regular season. I'm not worried about how Karl Anthony Towns and Jimmy Butler are going to perform in the playoffs, not even the slightest bit. Those guys are going to go out there and do what they do, even guys like Jeff Teague and Taj Gibson. I'm not worried about them in the slightest bit either. But if the Minnesota Timberwolves are even going to have the slightest chance of upsetting the Houston Rockets in the first round, it's going to come down to Andrew Wiggins and whether or not he can step up and transcend his own game. If he is able to become a consistent scorer, an elite scorer like we all thought he had potential to be, closer to the guy we saw in the regular season last year when he was putting up nearly 24 points per game, the guy that if you didn't pay enough attention to on the offensive end, he will light you up for 30 easily. If Andrew Wiggins can get back to being that guy again for the Minnesota Timberwolves, well, I still don't think the Wolves will be favored to beat the Houston Rockets, but it would at least give them a chance, because as it stands right now, the Rockets have Minnesota beat in every single category. They're the better offensive team than the Wolves, a better defensive team than the Wolves, have a better bench than the Wolves, have a better head coach than the Wolves, and of course they have the best player in that series in James Harden. I would say the one advantage Minnesota has is Karl Anthony Towns and the fact that he can be such a dominant force down low, but then you remember that the Rockets have Clint Capella, one of the best defensive big men in the NBA, to help mitigate that a bit. So on paper, the Wolves don't have a single advantage over the Houston Rockets. So really, the only hope for Minnesota is if Andrew Wiggins steps up and does something incredible. I don't know if the playoff intensity, the playoff atmosphere can awaken something inside of him, because that's what's going to happen if the Wolves want to have the slightest chance of beating the Houston Rockets.
It's a waste of a year.
Yeah, waste of a year.
Period. You know,
I mean,
we put in all this work, and you know, you want to compete for that championship. You know, anything less is, you know, you go into the summer upset, thinking like, man, I gotta do this all over again.
Like right back down the bottom of the total pole.
This one is a 2-for-1. Kyle Lowry and DeMar DeRozan. And while we have been saying that these guys need to step up for the past few years, this is the first time that we are saying it that there are no excuses for Kyle Lowry and DeMar DeRozan. In the past, it was either their lack of playoff experience, Kyle Lowry not being 100% healthy in the playoffs, or their lack of health. They didn't have the best bench. In the past, there was always some sort of excuse that people could fall back on and say, this is why they didn't perform well in the playoffs. This year, guess what? They have enough playoff experience. Both Kyle Lowry and DeMar DeRozan are 100% healthy headed into the playoffs. They needed a better bench. They needed a better supporting cast. Guess what? They have one of the best benches, one of the best supporting casts in the entire NBA. And on top of that, they are the #1 seed in the Eastern Conference, meaning they should have home court advantage all the way up until the Eastern Conference Finals. So there really are no excuses at all. If Kyle Lowry and DeMar DeRozan can play at their absolute best and have the Raptors looking like the best version of the regular season Toronto Raptors, then they would have to be the favorites to come out of the Eastern Conference. If we see the version of the Raptors that were able to go toe-to-toe with Golden State and Houston, the Raptors that were able to make LeBron James have a meltdown on the sidelines and trade away half his team, if we can see those Toronto Raptors in the playoffs, then they will finally be able to ditch the reputation of being chokers. But it all comes down to Kyle Lowry and DeMar DeRozan, because in the playoffs, you can only go as far as your best players take you. The Raptors do have a great bench, arguably the best bench in the NBA, and that bench was able to carry them for a large portion of the regular season. But that's not going to be good enough for a 7-game series in the NBA playoffs. You can't have your star players being carried by the bench. So Kyle Lowry and DeMar DeRozan, this is your last chance.
This is the league at its best.
Durant's gonna get his.
Dribbles into a three.
Lastly on the list of players that need to step up, we have Kevin Durant. He's a player that puts himself on the same pedestal as LeBron James. He has said in the past that he believes he is the best player in the NBA, better than LeBron James. And there are other fans out there who also believe this, who believe that Kevin Durant has surpassed LeBron James to become the best player in the NBA. Well, guess what? It's time for him to prove how dominant of a player he can be, because the Warriors don't have Stephen Curry in the first round matchup against the San Antonio Spurs. And there are already people legitimately questioning whether or not the Warriors without Curry can beat the Kawhi Leonard-less San Antonio Spurs in the first round of the playoffs, when Golden State still has Kevin Durant on their team. And here's my whole thing. If Kevin Durant was really on the same level, the same pedestal as LeBron James in terms of being an NBA player, then we wouldn't be having this very conversation, because we know no matter what happened or who went down, no one would ever question the fact that LeBron James would be able to make it out of the first round of the playoffs. LeBron wouldn't even let us think about that possibility for a second. Back in 2015, when the Cavs lost Kevin Love after Kelly Olynyk yanked on his shoulder, the Cavs still marched right into the NBA Finals. And in the NBA Finals, Kyrie Irving goes down with a broken knee. So now LeBron is on a team where his second and third best players are J.R. Smith and Timofey Mozgov. And LeBron James still goes on to make it a 6-game series. And here we have Kevin Durant, who, yes, doesn't have Stephen Curry in the first round, but he still has 2 other All-Stars on on his team in Klay Thompson and Draymond Green. And we're questioning whether or not he will be able to make it past the Kawhi Leonard-less San Antonio Spurs in the first round of the NBA playoffs, since the Golden State Warriors and Kevin Durant have played so terribly when they didn't have Steph Curry this year. You give LeBron James, Klay Thompson, and Draymond Green, and would we be questioning whether or not they make it past the San Antonio Spurs without Kawhi Leonard? Not a chance. There's no one questioning that. So the fact that we are even worried in the slightest bit about Golden State, to me, is an indicator that Kevin Durant needs to step it up. And by step it up, I don't just mean barely beat the Spurs in a close 6 or 7 game series. No, you have to go out there and dominate the San Antonio Spurs. Erase all doubt from people's minds that you were ever going to lose just because you didn't have Stephen Curry. Because once again, if you really are on the same level as LeBron James, we wouldn't be having this conversation in the first place. But that does it, guys. Those are the players who I think need to step it up in the 2018 NBA playoffs. Let me know who you think needs to step it up down in the comment section below. Anyways, hope you guys enjoyed the video. Remember to smack that like button if you did, and subscribe to the channel so you don't miss out on more daily NBA videos. I'll see all of you right back here tomorrow, but until then, I am out of here.